Hello Volvo enthusiasts, welcome to a new how-to video from Nordicar. In this video, we'll show you how to replace the timing gear of your B18 or B20 engine. The B18 and B20 are used in the Volvo 544, Amazon, P1800, 140 and even in the early 240 series. It might seem complicated if you've never done this before, but after watching this video, you should be able to easily do it yourself. How do you know you have the right engine in front of you? If you have a B18 or B20, this will be marked on the left side of the engine block as seen from the driver's position. It will be marked B20 at the front of the engine block or B18 at the back of the engine block. You can see that there's some clearance between the gears. If the clearance between the gears becomes too wide, this will affect the performance of the engine. The ignition timing will vary, which will negatively affect the engine's performance. So today we're going to replace the timing gear. What do we need? A timing gear kit, 13/16 wrench, 5/8 wrench, 1/2 inch wrench, 7/16 wrench, a 19mm and a 17mm wrench, a hammer, 2 chisels, gear extractors for the crankshaft and the camshaft, a 36mm socket, tap wrench, adjustable wrench, extractor for the crankshaft hub, side cutter, locking tool, 2 bushings, a gasket scraper, grinding paper and heat resistant sealant, brake cleaner, and a torque wrench. Step 1. Disassembly. Before we're able to get to the timing gear, we need to disassemble several parts. First, we're going to remove the drive belt. We'll do this by loosening the alternator a bit. We'll use a 1/2 inch wrench for the alternator tensioner and a 19mm wrench for the main bolt. After that, we'll take off the fan with a 1/2 inch wrench in order to reach the timing gear cover. We're now going to disassemble the crankshaft pulley. We'll use a 13/16 wrench and a hammer to loosen the bolt. Now we're able to remove the pulley and we can start removing the timing gear cover. We'll start by loosening the bolts on the bottom of the timing gear cover. For this, we're using a 1/2 inch wrench. The other bolts can be removed with a 7/16 wrench. Now that we've removed the timing gear cover, we're able to see the clearance between the gears even better. We can remove the crankshaft hub by creating some space with a hammer and a chisel. Thereafter, we'll use an extractor to remove the bush completely. We're now going to remove the nut from the camshaft gear. In order to do this, we have to block the gear. For this, you can either use a thick screwdriver or a tap wrench. You can place these in one of the holes in the gear. We can loosen the bolts with a 36mm socket and a tap wrench. Here, we're using a special locking tool. Now that we've loosened the bolt, we can remove the gear from the camshaft with the tripod extractor. Now it's time to remove the smaller gear. Again, we're using a special extractor. We're going to mount the puller on the gear and put it under tension so that we can remove the gear from the crankshaft. We're also going to remove the camshaft key. This can be done with a side cutter. We'll need the key later, so make sure you don't lose it. We're now able to remove the lock plate. When this has been removed, we see the spacer ring. The ring has to be removed as well. To prevent dirt from falling into the oil sump, we'll cover it with a cloth. We'll take off the old gasket and we'll scrape the engine clean with a gasket scraper. Step 2. Cleaning the oil jet. While we're replacing the timing gear, we also check the oil jet. The oil jet makes sure the timing gear is lubricated. There's a little hole in the oil jet. We can clean it by spraying some brake cleaner through the oil jet. Now that it's clean again, we can put it back on the engine block. Make sure that the hole is pointed at the timing gear. The narrow section of the oil jet should face the side of the timing gear cover. Step 3. Replacing the timing gear. Now that everything has been disassembled, we can start mounting the new timing gear. The timing gear kit includes a new gasket, an oil seal for the new and old type timing gear cover, a new camshaft flange with spacer ring, 2 new bolts, a steel gear, and a fibre gear. We advise you to check that the spacer ring is 0.1mm thicker than the camshaft flange. This clearance allows the camshaft to rotate smoothly. We're now going to mount the steel gear. First, we'll lubricate the inside. The gear has a locating side and a flat side. The locating side should face the engine block. You should also pay attention to the fact that the keyhole of the gear is in line with the key. We'll now use a bushing to mount the gear on the crankshaft. You can also use a block of wood. Next, we're going to mount the new camshaft flange with spacer ring and we'll fasten them with 2 new bolts. After that, we mount the key that we removed earlier. Now it's time to mount the fibre gear. We have to keep in mind that the marks on both the smaller and bigger gear face each other. The keyhole has to be in line with the key. This is the back of the gear and this side should face the engine block. First, we'll use some oil and then we'll align the gear. We have to make sure that the marks are placed opposite each other. If that's the case, we can turn the fibre gear and make sure that the keyhole is in line with the key. If the gear does not slide smoothly on the camshaft, we can gently hit the gear. Don't do this too hard, otherwise the camshaft will eject the block at the back. As soon as the camshaft thread shows, we can use the nut, a fixation tool and a 36mm socket wrench to mount the gear further onto the camshaft. We still have to fasten the nut to the correct torque. We'll do this by using a torque wrench adjusted to 14 kilograms. Never tighten the nut with a power wrench, as this may cause the camshaft's front part to break off. Once again, we can see that the marks on the gears are lined out correctly. Now it's time to mount the crankshaft hub back on the crankshaft. Firstly, we'll check that the crankshaft hub doesn't have any excessive seal damage, and we lubricate the inside. Again, make sure that the keyhole is in line with the key or mounting the crankshaft hub. Before we mount the timing gear cover, we'll replace the seal ring. This is an old type of timing gear cover and, therefore, we have to assemble the white felt seal. First, we have to soak the seal in oil. After that, we'll put back the ring and spring. With a flat screwdriver, we make sure the spring is in place. If you have a new type of timing gear cover, you can use the orange seal ring. First, press the seal ring manually into the cover. Thereafter, you can use a bushing and a hammer to tap the seal ring into the cover. We also sell timing gear covers in which the orange seal ring is already mounted. The orange seal ring is an improvement compared to the felt seal ring. We'll now put some sealant on the edges of the timing gear cover so that the gasket will stay in place. We'll also put some sealant on the bottom of the timing gear cover. You'll want to do this on the inner edge. That means the sealant will automatically spread out over the width of the gasket when mounting the cover. Now it's time to mount the timing gear cover. We'll use a wrench to tighten the bolts evenly. In this way, the timing gear cover won't bend. Make sure you don't forget the bottom 2 bolts of the cover. Finally, we'll remove the remaining sealant. We'll now place the pulley back on the crankshaft. Make sure the keyhole is in line with the key. Mount the bolt and tighten it with a 13/16 wrench. In order to secure the bolt properly, we use a hammer. Now it's time to mount the pulley with the fan. And now we'll mount the drive belt. The drive belt will first go around the crankshaft, then the alternator, and lastly around the water pump. Next, we'll tension the drive belt, and then we're done replacing the timing gear. This is the end of this video. We would like to thank you for watching and wish you success with your first time replacing the timing gear of your Volvo engine. If you want to see more videos about repairs to classic Volvo cars, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel.